Okay, thank you all for coming. Is the city shut down? Shouldn't we have done this Good Friday? Probably, you know, it would have been a little bit easier on us all. At this time, I will call on, I guess we got an agenda, so the city manager extraordinaire, Nate Pagan.
Woo-hoo. Well, thank you, Mayor. And Mayor and Commissioners, hello and welcome to the 1920 fiscal year budget presentation. As always, this meeting is broadcast and available to the public in the interest of transparency so the public understands or has the ability to understand and be aware of what we're doing. The agenda today will follow sort of our traditional approach, but with a little variation here or there. So, and first we'll provide a little background or some context for the budget. Then a lot of the discussion will be based on the proposed expenditures for next fiscal year that will be presented by our department heads and supervisors. They are, of course, the ones who know their operations the best and did a great job submitting their requests. So they'll take the lead with presenting the expenditures. Angela Hamrick will provide the revenue estimates, and then finally we'll talk about some forecasts for the out years. We typically do a rolling 4-year forecast of where we think our financials will be, so we'll provide just a quick overview of that at the end. If you have any questions at any time, feel free to jump in and ask them.
Don't need to be recognized. They can just jump in.
Fine with me.
Fine with me.
Sure. As you know, the local economy is doing well. Of course, we had a recent announcement of a sizable project downtown, but we've had other announcements over the last few months as well. So our economy is doing well. Our number of employees or employment in the community continues to increase. We've seen continued steady and sustained job growth. We won't talk a lot today about the current year's budget, but that's can be seen and recognized, I think, in the current year's budget because our revenues are performing very well in the current year. And correspondingly, with increased jobs has decreased unemployment. So again, this is somewhat subject to the economy, of course, but we are seeing record low unemployment still. So on to the budget. Quickly as an overview and a higher level today, we are proposing no changes to our staffing level in the next budget. We are not proposing any rate changes to our primary tax sources. That includes no proposed rate change for our property tax or the real property, no rate change for insurance premium tax or the occupational or net profits. So no proposed changes.
A second.
Yeah. So, again, Angela will cover the revenues more in depth, but from a high level, no proposed rate changes. We do actually have a surplus in the budget we're proposing today of $532,529. So we're happy to present a budget with a surplus that allows our financial position to strengthen, and then, of course, subject to the Commission's goal of maintaining our GFOA standard of a minimum fund balance that allows us to strengthen in relation to that fund balance.
Thank you, staff.
Yeah.
City man, when was the last time you budgeted a surplus? Does anybody have an idea when that ever happened? Just curious.
It seems like we may have had a small surplus a couple.
That's not true.
Seems it may have been a couple years ago.
I apologize.
No, again, we're pleased to do that this year. And then finally, we were able to absorb the pension costs. Of course, pensions have been an issue for local governments in this state for years, and they will continue to be for several years going forward. So we were able to absorb the pension costs. And further, we were able to set aside some funds for the costs that we know are coming in the subsequent year. So we're proposing to set aside what we call a pension or CERS reserve, or to set aside funds for those future costs. And we'll talk more about that actually in the general government section. Again, relative to pensions, our costs have gone up, and we know that they will be going up for the foreseeable term. A few years ago, the state legislature put a 12% cap on our annual increases, but we do not know how many years of 12% caps that we expect at this point. So we do view it as being somewhat of a long-term initiative. And so from our rolling financial projections that we do, we've included as a 12% assumption in all of the years that we do, because we do think it will be ongoing for several years. And you can see that number compounds, and it adds up very quickly, unfortunately. For some shared factors or issues that are not specific to any one department and are cross-departmental. The city was able to see a savings, actually, in health insurance of $146,000 this year. That's primarily due just to changes in number of staff who are on the single plan as opposed to the family plan. As there's natural attrition of city employees, that ratio changes, and so it just so happened this year that worked in our favor. We were able to fund the 1.25% step increase per policy. So those employees who are eligible for a step increase, that is funded for next fiscal year. And then also we've included a 3% across the board cost of living adjustment for all employees. So employees were definitely a priority in the budget. Wanted to make sure that they're appreciated and that they know that they are much respected for the service they provide to our community. So we tried to take care of them to the extent that we could. Well, we looked at, we've got some information about other agencies, but we still feel like we're behind on some agencies. So we're just trying to make up for some of the lower years that were done in the past. As we transition to the various departments and their budgets, just a quick reminder, the city budget's with a fund-based budget. So the primary fund that you'll hear referenced is the general fund. That's where our general purpose taxes, such as the property tax and those sources, go into the general fund. That funds the majority of our operations. We do have some special revenue funds. Those are restricted funds, such as the Your Community Vision, that are restricted by ordinance to a specific purpose. The capital projects fund actually is pretty small in next year's budget at this point. That's where we do projects such as the parking garage or those kind of things, and we don't really have any new projects that we're proposing. Enterprise funds are those that generate their own revenue, such as sanitation, so it's a self-supporting fund, so it provides for its revenue and the expenses are from that fund. And then finally, internal service funds are funds that service other agencies or other departments of the city. This is the org chart for the city. I'm sure you've seen it before. Essentially, the citizens are at the top. You and the staff, we all work on behalf of the citizens of Owensboro. Of course, you set the policy objectives, and I implement them on your behalf. So that is the org chart for the city. To start this morning with the administration, I'll be briefing a portion of admin. That includes admin excluding special events and community development. They'll be briefed separately by their agency or department heads. So basically, this covers the fourth floor, the CSRs on the first floor, and then the AV guys in the booth in the back. You can see for administration, we have a 3% overall reduction in those expenses for the year of about $37,000. That's primarily driven by a 4% decrease in personnel, which is a result of lower salaries and insurance costs for these employees. Have nominal changes to the supplies and other line items, as you can see. If you have any questions, be happy to answer them. And if not, I will hand it off to Tim Ross for public events.
Tim Ross.
Tim Ross, Public Events Director. For the Public Events Department, Nate referenced some of the increase in overall for the department. It's down about almost $43,000 this year in overall expenses. Personnel, as you can see, went up some thanks to some insurance and some with the pension and some of those that Nate referenced as well. Maintenance is up minimally, and that's the support the Public Works provides for all of the 5K road races and community events that happen throughout the community. Then supplies and other are down pretty significantly, almost about $60,000 in reduction in total costs between supplies and other categories. As far as what public events does and what all it involves, just as an overview for the commission and for the community, obviously we do a handful of signature events every year, like our July 4th and Barbecue Fest and the Air Show and things like that we're responsible for in the public events department. We also partnerships with numerous events like the Color Blast that Puzzle Pieces does, the Wendell Foster and the half marathon that they did, things like Friday After 5. There's about a little more than 100 events throughout the year that we work on and provide support with. And then we've also got special projects that we do, like the Nikki Hayden, statue unveiling that we did, or the grand opening of Bluegrass Museum, things like that. Public arts projects, as well as the new downtown entertainment district. So all of those are encompassed to different levels in what we do with public events. So overall, again, a reduction in cost fairly significantly due to reductions in the air show and having a smaller air show this year, as well as the live, Bluegrass on the Banks music series that we're not going to be continuing now that Bluegrass is open and they do their own programming downtown, so we've discontinued that. And so that's the major reason for the reduction. Any other questions?
I have a question. You
Yes,
know,
sir.
in this big old book, where is it broken down what you're by event, like the Nikki Hayden thing?
Mhm.
So that when people come and call and ask, you know, could you help me with an event, they just don't really understand public works, sanitation, police and fire, staff. How can we understand, like, what it costs to put on the Nikki Hayden thing? Sometimes you get donations from the public.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way for, you know, when we don't know, I'm speaking for myself, when I don't know if you just got through asking Nate Pagan Plumbing for $150 and I see him, and I might ask him for $150. It's probably in here. My question is, where is it?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's split between numerous different departments, depending on which.
I was afraid of it.
Yeah, depending on which department does it. So the way that we've structured it since day one, about 8 or 9 years ago, is that Public Works, they've had for a long time. Correct me if I'm wrong, Wayne, but a long time they've had support of events in the community, whether it's a 5K race or a special Nikki Hayden thing or a bridge light, whatever it might be, and so they estimate how much man hours it's going to take to support those different events throughout the community, and we change those numbers, you know, each year based on what we've done the previous years. So he's got a portion of that. The police department, fire department, those chiefs have got the same thing. They've got some man hours written into their budget that they do for extra things, whether it's a ball team that they're going to help, you know, won a championship that they're going to help do something and carve out a little bit of time for, or special events. So we don't, in my budget, have a line item for every individual event we do, because every event, some events involve police, but they don't involve anybody else. Some event involves Public Works, but nobody else. So it's all split up with the different departments, and they estimate the amount of time it's going to take.
So the
Did
answer-
that answer your question? So the answer to your question, there's not a
It ain't in
specific
there.
line item.
It ain't
No.
in there,
It's
right?
split between probably 4 or 5 different budget departments.
Okay, I hope that's a fair question, because
It is,
comes
yeah.
up all the time, and I don't really know what to tell people, you know, when they come and ask. I just tell them all these different things that might be involved in you, but
Right. Yeah, each one's unique, and that's why it's split between the different departments according to who's providing the support for that event.
so I should answer them how?
You could direct them to come see myself or city manager, assistant city manager. We give them a better breakdown of that. But it is truly unique. And every year the events change too, according to what's involved with that event.
Okay,
on
let's
that year.
just say that half marathon.
Mhm.
You have any idea what that cost the city?
Not off the top of my head, but I could go back.
Come on, man.
But I could go back. I could certainly go back and add it up fairly quickly and get you that
But I
answer.
just,
Certainly.
you know, that's a recent thing that that comes to mind, and it was quite a bit to have the police everywhere to stop and go and all that stuff. You know, and that way, when they come back next year and ask for the opportunity to do it again,
Sure.
I'll have something in my mind, if I'm still here, that says, well, you know, really, it's that thing that's free admittance, but it's not free.
Sure.
Is my thought process on these.
Yeah, and
That's
that's
why I was, you know, if you could maybe pick 2 or 3 of those and say, okay, this is kind of what went into putting this event on, and that'll give me a little better idea of how to answer them, and
Sure.
and if it's something that, you know, looks like it might be good, then we could move them over there. I don't send people over there to you that, 'cause I get some odd requests sometimes.
I understand. Yeah, and Wendell Foster's is a great one because it's a nonprofit, and we traditionally always, the policy's always been that we give a good amount of support back to nonprofits through some discounts for the man hours. And again, our budgets are written into that, so they're paying, they get a 60% discount in what the services are that we offer for those nonprofit groups. When it comes to March of Dimes, that's doing their March for Babies walk, or American Cancer, that's doing their walk, or Wendell Foster's that did the run, they get a pretty big deduction in what those man hours are for the police support for that half marathon. But I can certainly provide that to you. And
Pick out 2 or 3 that.
Sure.
Kind of a universal, you know, because we're going to have some pub crawl, I think. Somebody's wanting to do that pretty soon.
Right.
So when they call and say, you know, we want to do a pub crawl, and I don't have any idea what to tell them, and I'd like to have an idea, say, okay, you're gonna run through half the city, you know, it's gonna cost this much, and we need to have some kind of balance in what we give away and what we ask from the sponsors is my
Sure.
thought process.
Yep, and that's my office sits down with everybody that comes to us for an event to do it, because truly it is a case-by-case basis. You know, with a half marathon and the length of time that they're running and some of those roads that they were on, it involved more support from Public Works than we do for a lot of our 5K races. A lot of the ones that don't cross the railroad track, and
Yeah.
we try to put them in certain locations that minimizes the number of officers and minimizes the impact to some of the surrounding streets. So, but it just depends on what that race is and the time of year and things like that. So we take all those into consideration, and we're not trying to kind of hide the numbers in any way, but they're all really unique case by case according to what their needs are.
I'm not accusing you of hiding any
I
numbers.
understand. I understand.
I just would feel more comfortable if somebody comes up with a harebrained idea. You know, I just think it would be nice to have some generalities.
Sure.
These are 3 events that we did, and this is actually what it actually is costing the taxpayers to put these projects on.
No problem. We can provide that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else have something? Yes.
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 Tim, I see that you guys are spending $685, $870. Do you know, 2 parts to my question, how many people do your 100+ events bring to the city of Owensboro, number 1? Number 2, do you have any estimated revenue, just a general idea of what it's bringing in revenues?
Yeah, good questions. No, we don't have total capacity counts for all those 100+ events. The ones that we actually manage ourselves are far fewer than that. But we've got crowd estimates for all the big events that we do.
Give me examples, or just kind of?
Yeah, I mean, well, for the air show, traditionally we'll say there's 40,000 plus folks. This last year we had, with the Blue Angels being here, we knew it was going to be bigger, so we had over 70,000 folks that weekend.
Okay.
But I always try to go on the more conservative side and say regularly we have 40 to 50,000 folks for that event. Friday After 5 draws. It's not one that we own, but we partner with them and help with, and that draws anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 folks every Friday for those 16 weeks.
Okay.
Along the riverfront. July 4th, there's typically 15 to 20,000 folks over the course of the night that are down along the riverfront and the parks. And again, if you take an economic impact of that and what the state tourism says,
Yeah.
I don't always believe that, because we know a lot of the visitors, are not coming and driving in to stay. But yet we do know when we do July 4th, the 2 downtown hotels are sold out when July 4th. They're always carving out those days.
Sure.
We know this last year for the air show, 7 of the hotels in town were sold out. Again, it was a bigger year because the Blues were here.
Yeah.
But typically we have 3 or 4 hotels that sell out for that every year. So we know it makes an impact, but to gauge a specific dollar amount to it, it just depends on which number you want to use. But we know the events that we do are certainly having an impact to be a signature thing to draw folks to the community.
So what would be their number that they use that you may like? Total?
They use a number, I'd have to get back to you, but I believe it's $156, $157 per person per day, and that includes and then if they have a hotel stay, it's over and above that. So it would be significant, but again, we know for the air show, obviously not everybody is
Right.
driving in and spending the night in hotels. We know a lot of folks that come and they drive 2 or 3 hours,
Right.
and they spend the day here, they get some
Right.
dinner before they go home.
Right, and they spend gas and,
That's correct, yeah.
okay. So actually, it's probably a pretty good number.
Yeah, it would be significant, sure. And there's ancillary cost to that. If we look at our events individually, July 4th might cost the city, $35,000 or $40,000 to host that event.
Right.
But we know the convention center, as an example, makes 15, 20, 30 grand on that event too, which is a city-owned building, helps their subsidy.
Gotcha.
Air show, similar thing. The Laura and her staff and Blake, when he was here, they do a good job of capitalizing
Right.
when those events take place to be able to increase their revenues whether it's Friday After 5
Right.
or July 4th.
Right.
And so even though it's not directly related to that budget and what I've got,
Mhm.
it's still a city entity that is obviously being assisted by that.
Very good, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Larry Condor, City Commissioner.
Thank you, Mayor. Tim, the page we're on is special projects, and one coming up in this coming year is lighting the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any idea, number one, I guess, a budget cost, or any idea of what we may have planned to try to do that? I guess the first thing is, do you have a budget for it?
Yeah, the plan at this point is to partner that with the Holiday Stroll event, because I think timeline, correct me if I'm wrong, Leland, is sometime late November, early December is when that event would be ready to have the bridge lit. Is that?
Let's don't give all our secrets away now. We gotta have
That's
something to
correct.
surprise the people.
Yeah, so late November, early December. So our concept was, since we have that event traditionally that first weekend of December, we'd partner it with that. And so we will utilize funds with that and kind of capitalize on what we normally with the Holiday Stroll, just make it a little bit bigger event to light that bridge.
Thank you, Mayor.
So if all these people, Ms. Hamrick, I'm recognizing you. So if all these people benefit from these events, so you would see a spike in their net profits for that month, I guess, huh?
Some, possibly. Like I have said before, people will strategize their tax liabilities. You're going to see bigger gains, I think, in your occupational license fee, the payroll withholding, if you will. I think you'll see a bigger influx of revenues that way. But it certainly does add to the revenue stream of everyone in the city, for sure. There's no doubt about it. And if it happens to occur in a TIF area, there's the state revenues as well.
Thank you. Anybody else? It wasn't too bad, was it, Tim? You said we were going to treat you off, but we didn't treat you off.
I didn't say that out loud. No, it's fine. So next up is going to be community development with Abby Shelton.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
A little intimidated. I haven't gotten to sit up here. So, Abby Shelton, Community Development Director for the City of Owensboro, Department of One. My presentation is pretty short.
Always get that in there, don't you, early on?
Well, the most efficient department in the city, if I may say. No competition, guys. So, my entire budget is about $208,000, and by the entitlement funds that we receive from the federal government, about 60% of the admin fees that we collect pays for that budget. So you'll see a slight increase in personnel due to me. It's across the board, that's what we are seeing. Maintenance is up just slightly, $463, and then supplies are down slightly, $300. The next slide, you'll see our biggest project at the Triplet Twist District, which ends in June 2020. Those are all the projects we have going on currently. I have just now shut down the existing homeowner exterior facade rehab program because of everybody's been participating in it, and I want to stretch those funds out to June 2020. So we will reopen applications hopefully at the end of summer. But as you can see, as of right now, we have $2.3 million in public funds that have gone into the Triplet Twist District, and then $2.7 million in private funds, which I hope will have a large announcement later on next year, next fiscal year, so we can bump that number up to be the largest NRSA in the history of Owensboro. So, and that will be all private funds that will go into that development. We do enjoy several wonderful partnerships throughout the city of Owensboro. Most notably, our Habitat partnership has flourished, and we help them by donating land to them, providing through property maintenance and work through the city of Owensboro. We either are sold properties, are donated properties, and then we take the buildings down and give them the lands to build new homes, which of course creates new revenue for us. We do have a new partnership with Owensboro Area Affordable Housing Solutions, Inc., which is our CHODA, or Community Housing Development Organization. And they have built one new home at 1420 Jackson Street, which is almost complete, and we'll do ribbon cutting for. And then I think next fiscal year, we'll do another home with them. And then, of course, we're preparing for the 2020-2025 Northwest NRSA, and diligently collecting information for that to prepare and give to HUD. And then we recently finished the senior center surveys, and will put that information into the RFQ for the new senior center, which is hopefully going to be located in the new NRSA. So that's my budget. Do you have any questions?
I would like to know how your relationship is with HUD.
With HUD, it's very good, as a matter of fact. I think I do have a good relationship with Louisville. We did get our new numbers from the federal government, which they went up just a little bit. We got them on time this year, so we don't have to do a budget amendment. So it's gone up a little bit in CDBG and just slightly down in home funding, which is typical because of the new participants in the program.
Well, I didn't know if you've heard the issues that the Patino shelter has that's going on with HUD and the things they did to accommodate their request, and then they decided not to give them the grant. And I just were curious if you had stuck your nose in that at all.
I haven't stuck my nose in it. I did have a discussion about that issue with my contact at HUD, Anita Bowles, and she didn't go into details, but it was a little bit on the reporting side as to what had happened. So.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Yes, Commissioner Smith-Wright.
You can call me Pam.
You can call me Tom.
Abby, Gabe Shopping Center.
Yes.
I know it's in the triplet twist.
Yes.
And can you tell me, like, once the tower's down and all that stuff is done, is the person that owns that property, is he really going to redo all of that and get the businesses in there so we can get some money back and that kind of stuff through taxes and whatever?
We are actually in the process. We had to do a re-engineer for the facade development. We're putting some CDBG funds, which was slated to be put into that area. So we'll ramp up construction here shortly. But that will be done hopefully at the end of summer. And so once end of summer comes, you'll see a new facade on that development. Hopefully we'll have some action on the other property. And you'll see, if not by the numbers that I've pulled, which is about, $2 million have been generated through property sales, and then what we've been doing over there just by PVA values alone. People are selling their homes and they're putting money into their homes. I would say you'll see the money back regardless of, the businesses that go. They are high profile and we want to see that, but I think you'll see your money back regardless of that.
Thank you.
Yes.
So that money's not tied to the other opportunity that's on the corner, right? It's a whole different thing when you go CBG and then at 108 and then all that stuff.
Sorry? I'm sorry, Kate. What?
Well, now that we have the documents back, or is it actually our tower now?
We've not closed, but we do have a signed contract.
Signed contract. Okay, so this is a question, when are you going to take it down? And I would assume there would be some opportunity for your kind of money. What is the plan for that?
For Gabe's Tower?
There you go.
Okay.
I don't like to say it because it's just kind of.
So the way we approach that situation is that the easiest way to take care of the issues that come with Gabe's Tower was to use general fund money. And if you put CDBG funds into it, there's a whole lot more red tape that we would have gone through. And seeing it prudent as staff and seeing as what the Gabe's Tower has been through for the past 15 years, we had an opportunity to go ahead and purchase it with general fund money, and we will take care of it probably with general fund money. If you put my money into it, historic preservation will step in.
General fund money. Okay, I just want to make that clear. Thank you. Anything else? Anybody want to add on?
Well, I think Angela was just clarifying. It would be YCV funds, but local funds. So instead of using federal funds that come with some onerous restrictions, we'll acquire and demolish the tower with local funds.
Because that was one of the questions that people that are looking for your money, they want to know if they're going to get shut out because we've got to use your money to knock down that thing.
No.
So
No,
I
sir.
wanted to make it on the record that it's CV, what is it?
CDBG.
No, the
Oh,
Purchase, we'll use your
YCV.
community vision
Yeah.
funds.
Your community vision.
YCV funds, that's right. Local funds.
local funds. Okay, local funds. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, sir.
Abby, do you have any public hearings coming up very soon to be able to present, I guess, your 1920 plan or possibly even the 2025 plan that you have listed there? Do you have any, and so the public can know when they can come and participate?
They're welcome to send me any kind of comments that they have right now.
Okay. Okay.
At any time. I haven't finalized the action plan and will not finalize it until you guys receive the update at is it the May 7th commission meeting that we're having. You'll get a short synopsis of what goes into the action plan. I do have a draft document, and it's on the website on the community development page, so people are welcome to pull it down and read it at their leisure. If they have any comments, like I said, by law I have to put that in there. But it will be passed in May with the budget, and then it'll go into public record.
Thank you, Abby.
Sir?
Oh, you're scratching it. If that's it,
Yes, sir.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, Mayor. Up next will be Finance and Support Services Director Angela Hamrick.
Yes, Mayor and Commission. I have oversee and have the responsibility for 4 areas with a total staff of 36 full-time and nine non-full-time. Those 4 areas are broken down as follows. I have Information Technology, or IT, run by IT Manager Angela Bruner. Geographic Information Systems, or GIS, run by GIS Manager Will Carpenter. Finance, which is run by our Deputy Director of Finance and Support Services, Danae Galloway. Human Resources, run by our Human Resources Manager, Josh Bachmar. Each of them will be presenting their area, the budget for their area. I now turn it over to Angela Bruner.
Thank you. The proposed budget for the IT department is almost $2 million, 1.9.
Try and get it closer to the mic, please. Thank you.
I'll start over then.
I know you-
Proposed budget for the IT is $1.9 million, which is a 3% increase over last year. 3 main areas where that money is in the personnel, which is up 5% for $57,473. The largest area where I have an increase is in our maintenance department, which includes all of your computer software maintenance. We have a 49% increase there for $89,000. There are 2 main projects for that. We had started a large initiative about 6 years ago for Wi-Fi in the city. We purchase those licensing every 3 years, so it takes a larger hit every 3 years for that item, so it's a $16,000 in next year's budget for that. As well as we have 1 major software product, which we do of our imaging, all of your documents and all that, which has had no upgrades since we purchased it in about 15 years ago. So we need to do a major upgrade on that project because the current version we're running will not get any more features and functionality added to it going forward. So that is a $63,000 project to upgrade that system. Our supplies area is down 50% for $113,000. The main reason for this is we purchased our Microsoft Office licensing this year. It was a $150,000 investment there, and we do that every 3 to 5 years. So next year we don't have that on the budget to purchase again. So that takes that one down for that amount.
Isn't out of my purview, so good job.
Not a lot of people. I hear that a lot. And next up will be the GIS division, which will be Will Carpenter.
I can't wait. I've never heard him talk.
Mayor, Commissioners, I'm Will Carpenter. I'm the manager of the GIS department. GIS is a consortium with the Fiscal Court, Regional Water Resource Agency, and OMU. City funds pays for 25% of my budget. As you can see on the slide, there are $466,000. The bulk of the increase this year is in personnel. That's the same across the board. Maintenance is down $800, and that's principally due to a reduction in computer maintenance. And supplies is down $2,000, and that's because the PC that was bought last year doesn't need to be bought this year. Any questions?
No, sir.
Short and sweet.
I figured it'd be short and sweet with you. Next.
Mayor, Commissioners, Danae
Oh.
Galloway, Deputy Director of Finance and Support Services for the city. I'm going to address the Finance Department. And the Finance Department has 17 full-time and 4 part-time employees. We do all revenue collections for the city, including property tax collections for both the city and city schools, occupational net profit license fee collections for both the city and the county, and insurance premium license fees being main sources of resources of revenue. We provide support to city departments in the form of accounts payable processing, purchasing, miscellaneous billing, including property maintenance, and overall finance support. We provide support to businesses through the tax area, which includes ABC licensing, tax filing assistance for business owners and citizens, and answer questions on tax ordinances. We handle large city projects such as the annual city budget, the annual audit, and the city auction each year. We also support smaller projects such as the new parking garage on Locust Street, and we've had a major role in the CAD RMS working with the police department and IT department. We also take care of both TIFs, the data collection, administration, and reporting for the downtown riverfront and Gateway Common TIFs. My budget can be found on page 24 and 25 in your book. The total budget is $1,707,901, up about 4% or $60,000. It's up mainly in personnel. It's 5%, and that's due to the COLA and increase in retirement cost. Supplies are up 2% or about $1,000, and that is mainly for the 5% increase to postage cost. And then other area is down 3% or about $5,000, and that's just the decrease we're seeing in credit card fee charges. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
Do we break even on collecting everybody else's stuff?
I think we do. I mean, I think we probably gain a little bit from that. It helps support the department. And since we have our own collections that we're doing anyway, and it's combined with our forms and our collections, then I'd say it's probably close.
The city and the school system and the county and all that, so we're,
Yes.
okay.
Quick question.
Commissioner Sanford.
Quick question. I know you guys do a ton of work, a ton of overtime. Staffing wise, last time I was here, you guys were running on, and you still are, maybe, I don't know. Are you where you need to be staff wise? I have no idea. Could you answer that?
I think we are. We've added an accountant. With the TIFs, we added an accountant, and that has helped lighten the load tremendously. I mean, the TIFs are a lot of work, but our IT department's been great. They wrote a program for us to help with data collection. And I think after this first year, that load will be a lot less because you have set up and things that you only have on the first year. I mean, I think we're in very good shape. My staff works very hard.
I know.
And I couldn't do it without, if I lost one of them, it would be very hard.
Okay.
So I think we're probably at that perfect balance right now in staff level.
Well, I appreciate everything you do. Thank you.
I want to add to that. I have been to other cities, and I think the finance department here is way busier. But we handle it,
Okay.
I think, well. We do have busier times, such as budget, such as audit, such as the TIF. It was the first year for the TIF, and not one, but two. And so there was a lot of overtime because of the TIFs, okay,
Right.
at the same time as budget. But then, things will slow down a bit. But even when things slow down for us, we're still busier, if you will, than what I see in other cities. But we have adapted to that and quite efficient, I think.
Busier because of growth of things going on in the community? Busier?
We have a lot going on. The downtown revitalization, we've had a lot of big projects. The Bluegrass Museum, the
Right.
Convention Center, the parking garage. We've had the tax increases of 2 years ago. There's just a lot. It seems there's always a big project around the corner, if you will. And so I think that keeps us busy. If you look at staffing at other areas, I think we have less staff than other areas, but like I said in Dene too, we manage. We've adapted and
So you have a well-oiled machine. Y'all are doing it. Y'all are getting it done.
I think so.
I appreciate that. You guys are doing a great job.
We have a lot of cross-training. My department is very cross-trained. I have a lot of staff that can work across multiple areas. I think that helps tremendously.
Well, thank you for what you've done. Appreciate it.
You have much turnover?
Not now. When the first few years I came, we had several retirements and some turnover, but I think we've kind of settled in now. I have all my positions filled, and hopefully everybody's planning on sticking around, so
Kind of a good
we're
indication if you're overworking them, sometimes you get a lot of turnover, so congratulations.
Thanks.
Okay. Like a barber shop.
Next will be Josh Bachmeyer with the Personnel or Human
You don't ever do
Resources
nothing.
Department.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Josh Bachmeyer, the HR Manager for the city, and I'll be presenting the Personnel Department budget for 2019 and 20. Total request is $817,962. Among the various personnel increases that have already been elaborated on, I would like to just point out a couple of notable mentions that have substantially changed or changed from years prior in some instances. Maintenance software increase. This is wholly due to the scheduled increase in our applicant tracking system, which is NeoGov.
Is what?
NeoGov is the name of the program that we use. As you might
Go
recall,
ahead.
about a year ago, we implemented NeoGov, so everything's online now. And that's completely implemented. We had a 5-year rate hold on that expired, so that's the reason for the increase. Recruitment is included with the other category, so I'll mention a couple within the other. We're forecasting the total recruitments to remain pretty stable for the next year. However, the increase is due to a revamp of our Hometown Heroes campaign. We've discussed internally and feel that campaign has kind of run its course, so we'd like to revamp that campaign for next year. And included with that will be print media and social media. We'll create a new video to be shown at the Malco, which will go to the new theater. And then a smaller portion of that increase will be used to advertise in some professional publications for some retirements that we know that are coming up in some pretty technical positions, such as a green superintendent. We want to advertise in some other avenues than we normally do for those positions. Employee recognition is another category in other. Included with the efforts we make to recognize those retiring from the city. We've added some funds to recognize those who have reached years of service milestones. We've done this in the past in the form of service pins, which we are requesting to continue at the 5-year increments. And also I believe we'd like to recognize them at the commission meetings, not for each 5 years, but maybe for 20 years or 25 years. So I think we'll make that proposal to you as well. And then tuition reimbursement. The city completely alleviated tuition reimbursement in 17-18 due to budget constraints. We felt this benefit helps attract top talent, reduce turnover, and ultimately increase productivity. So we've added $10,000 to the budget for those qualifying reimbursements. That has ranged from, I think when we finally alleviated, we have $1,200 in there, and it had been as high as $75,000. So we kind of thought we'll start with 10 and just kind of see what the response is and go from there. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
So with your tuition, and I agree, I think that should go up. So is there any kind of hook when we train them and then they leave? What's the story?
No hook. They do have skin in the game. I think it shows your high value candidates that we're invested in their professional and educational growth. So I feel like they definitely feel like they'll stay longer. I think there's some loyalty, but the hook is that they're subject to 50% of the cost. So they pay for half of it. We only pay for half of it.
Okay,
and that's only for a B
that's
or
fair
higher.
enough.
But I think it's a fair program. If you don't have any questions, I'll turn it back over to Nate.
Very good. Up next will be the Police Department and Chief Art Elam.
Is he the Kentucky Police Chief of the Year?
I believe that's correct, Mayor.
We couldn't even get him up on a stage. It's Rooster Booster. He's hiding out to the side somewhere. Hey, Chief.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. Art Elam, Chief of the Owensboro Police Department. Where's my budget? Shows an increase overall of 4%. As City Manager Nate Pagan alluded to.
That mic a little closer to you, could the Chief?
That is due to cost of living increases for the entire department. I am happy to say that we are currently at 102 full-time, and that is the most officers that we've had in the last 7 or 8 years. So, and if you were one to count your chickens before they hatch, next coming commission meetings, we'll be requesting that you approve up to 4 more officers. So we're closing in on that 107 allotted.
I got that swearing in almost memorized by now.
There was obviously an increase in our personnel costs of 4%, again, largely due to the cost of living increases. We had a 17% in maintenance, which is primarily due to the RMS, or Records Management System software, that we are in the process of negotiating now to purchase CAD and RMS. We saw an increase in utilities of 24%, which is largely due to our air cards, or MiFis, that officers use to access the internet in order to do reports and get data from KY Ops. This category increased here in the general fund because it was moved from your community visions. So we also see a capital increase of 2%, which is, $14,019, but that's due to some offsetting expenditures that didn't occur this year. However, I'd like to highlight some of the things that are included in this budget. That would be 10 custom signal dash cams for cruisers. This will go a long way in bringing us up to current standards with technology and replacing some antiquated, obsolete equipment that we currently use. Also, very happy to report in this budget, $59,995 is for a 3D scanner. And that's basically survey equipment, but now we know that there is a benefit to law enforcement. It's 3D images, it saves, it's efficient, very accurate. Right now, officers go to fatal accident scenes, and they actually have to measure point to point and take, if you see people doing survey work, they stand out in the field, go down the street, or whatever. This could close roads for hours on end on a fatal accident scene, or even inside a crime scene investigation, homicides, or what have you. Well, what this 3D scanner does is it reduces hours into minutes, and we can open streets faster. In fact, they can go back, and with the cloud mapping, they can map points on the software, like if we missed a gun or whatever, they can say, hey, it was at this location. So officers don't have to maintain these crime scenes or fatal accident scenes.
Is it on tripod or handheld, or what is it?
It could be used on
Either
a
way.
tripod, or in some cases, they just take it and sit it right in the floor, and it does scan. Like I said, it's millions of points in just a few hours or less.
59,000?
$59,900.
Got a bargain on that. Mine
Yeah,
cost
it's,
105.
how much?
105 for the one I use at my real world job.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's good.
Well, that's top of the line. This is a mid-level one, and KSP uses one that's called the Trimble SX10, and that's the one we kind of budgeted the mid-range. We looked at some lower-end ones, but they just basically...
What you pay for.
Exactly. So I think this would be sufficient for our needs at the police department.
Chief, does anybody else in this region have one of these?
No. I think KSP, when we used for the triple homicide on Audubon Avenue, we had to call KSP. And of course, when you do that, you have the lag time. You have to wait for them to get there. And then you're subject to, hey, if they were using it in another city, then that increases our wait time. So now we actually, if we have our own, and we are a very top-level police department, so I think we should be.
You should have a
equipped that way.
top-level equipment.
Exactly. Questions?
I think you're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you. I got a great staff, don't say me.
Your staff is doing a great job, Chief.
Thank you.
Yeah, you
I
are.
agree with you.
I've been asked several times about body cameras.
Yes.
And you and I have had this little discussion, and I think there's pros and cons, obviously, for both of them. And is that somewhere in the future, or you feel animate a bit? Tell us your feeling about that, if you don't mind, sir.
I'm willing to entertain that. I mean, even our department is split on that.
I thought so.
There are definitely pros and cons to it. What we have now is dash cams.
Right.
And basically, we may not be able to get the video footage, but they have transmitters. If an officer hits his lights or siren, the transmitters kick on, the cameras kick on, they record. So even if we don't see video, we can hear the audio of what's transpiring a lot of times. So,
Okay.
and I can only think of maybe a couple of incidents that we may have benefited from a body cam.
They're like $6,000 a camera, is that right?
Roughly. And I figured it'd be somewhere in the neighborhood of $80,000 just to equip the patrol division with body cams. And then you have an added expense of, storage. That's where they get you. They can give you the body cams for free, but the storage is outrageous.
Okay, well, that clears the air on that. Thank you.
Chief,
Yes, sir.
do you feel like there's enough in your budget to retain police officers?
This commission, a few years ago, approved sign-on bonuses to help us recruit laterals from other agencies. We also do longevity bonuses at 3, 5, and 7, and 9 years. So that's helping. We had a great amount of turnover years ago, and right at the time the pension crisis was hitting, and we became more aware of that. But also, we had like 30 some odd, maybe 35 officers that were eligible for retirement at 20 years. And the trend across the state was that anybody that got 20 years, unless they were a little slow like me, they left, So, and right now we see that we're on the uptick and constantly improving, so.
Thank you.
Well, that's a compliment to you and your staff. Okay, thank you very much, sir. Anything else you'd like to add? No ask. City manager's right there. You can ask him in front of all of us. Thank you, sir. He plays a mean guitar too, people, let me tell you.
And can sing.
I don't know about that.
All right. Up next, Public Safety Director Paul Nave for Central
Okay, Paul.
Dispatch.
We'll take pause and then have a 5-minute break. Is that right? At one?
That concludes my budget.
Oh, thank you very much, Paul. We appreciate you.
All right.
No, it's good. But Beth made me do that.
Pardon me?
Nothing.
All right. Mayor, Commissioners, good afternoon. Paul Nave, 911 Director, Owensboro, Davis County Central Dispatch. You see my staffing. I have the 27 full-time telecommunicators, and then we have part-time staff that we maintain with 28 as a total staffing. So my budget's decreased by almost $1 million, you can see. And the biggest part of that is the capital projects that are no longer budgeted in my accounts that are being come to fruition this next year, all right? So the P25 radio project, the CAD project, and the MDT project, all that's coming into fruition this next year. So that's no longer in my budget. And then the money's needed for the computers and all that stuff is taking out because that's being purchased during this last fiscal year. And so that's the P25 CAD MDT. I want to make sure that's what was taking out so you understand that's not in my budget. And that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
I have a question. With the new ambulance service,
Yes.
are we connected? Are we going to be connected with the new ambulance service that if we ever get it signed on to? Is it going to be any kind of issue at all? Because aren't they headquartered isn't that right? It's Evansville?
And Paul, I believe you're already having conversations with them, is that
That's correct.
Okay.
So the answer to your question is, we don't know exactly how it's going to get accomplished, but we're going to get it accomplished somehow so that we can get our 911 calls transferred so they can do the EMD as required by the contract.
So it'll be actually go to them and it'll be transferred to us? Or we'll go straight to us and we'll transfer it to them?
Correct. Just like,
Perfect.
so we dispatch the ambulance and the fire immediately, and then we send the call to the dispatcher there for EMD process.
Good. I was hoping it'd go that way. Thank you.
That's our goal.
Commissioner Condon?
Paul, it seemed a little while ago that you were having personnel issues of how high stress the job is, because they're the first ones they talk to on the phone in Central Dispatch, and trying to have them remain calm. and do everything. There seemed to be some personnel issues. How are you today? I think is everything doing well, and what's their status out there, please?
We still have the same issues. It's in our work field across the United States. There's always a turnover in public safety when it comes to 911 because of the stress. There's a lot of variables that causes that, but we're doing everything to try to eradicate those variables and try to help resolve those. But at this point, we do have shortage in staffing, and we're doing everything to try to improve that. But with the stress load and the call volume and having to work nights, weekends, and holidays, that's something that I have no control over, right? And a lot of people don't want to do that for the rest of their lives, right? If I get someone for 5 years, I'm excited to have them for 5 years during that time. I really am. To answer your question, do we have that plight? Yes, we still have that plight, but we're working through that every single day. Josh is working hard with me, and so we're trying to get through that plight.
They are appreciated.
Well, thank you so much.
Say Josh is working hard.
He does work hard.
Okay, just. Any other questions? Hearing none, thank you, Paul, appreciate you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Mayor, up next will be the Fire Department and Chief Steve Mitchell.
Usually somebody's wanting to take a 5-minute break after an hour or so. Doesn't matter to me. I have a cup here, so I'm in good shape.
Mayor and Commissioners, I'm very pleased to present the budget for the fire department to you. To accomplish our mission and goals, we're staffed with 102 employees. 99 of those are uniformed. We have 1 civilian administrative staff member and 2 part-time fire safety specialists. We're organized. We staff 5 stations in a regional training center spread throughout the city. We respond to over 8,200 calls per year and have a arrival time of less than 5 minutes 82% of the time. Just real briefly, a lot of what we do is broken down into the areas of emergency planning and special events, emergency services, special operations, community risk reduction, and human resource development and safety. We respond to over 300 different incident types, but 75% of those are either medical or rescue in nature. Our program, our EMS program, combined with our ambulance service, saves a lot of lives each year. Yeah. I called him just before I came up here. That's the reason I asked about the break, because I didn't know if I needed to delay that. So let's look at our budget. Our total is $11,476,653. This is 2% less than this current year. Our budget presented, it's a highly efficient budget, but as you know, we're personnel services heavy. Matter of fact, 83% of our entire budget is professional, skilled human resources. Now, you may recall 6 of these personnel are being paid for by a federal grant through 2021. So it's a percentage, it's a higher percentage this year than it goes down each year. So, but that helps out. Our maintenance increased a little bit this year because out at Fire Station 3, our driveway is degrading and has been getting progressively worse, and that has to be replaced this year. However, our supply, all of our supplies are fairly stable from year to year. We do have quite a bit of computer upgrades coming up this year, so that's one line item that's a little higher. So, and Mayor and Commissioners, if I may, 7 years ago,
Move to adjourn.
Fire Chief Edward Curitan started bringing modernized, motorized fire apparatus to Owensboro. And by the way, that math's about 5 years off, but it was close enough. So about 96% of our capital line item is fleet replacement plan. So we made adjustments this year. It is higher because you may recall the new ladder truck. We had to start putting that in the replacement plan. Yes, 2 new ladder trucks, that's correct. And there's, in the normal plan, there's 2 fire engines. Engine 1 and Engine 2 will both be replaced in the next year, and those are in that replacement plan as well. So we look at a couple of the highlights that we're looking at with this particular budget. First of all is we've been working for a couple years now with Western Kentucky University and some other agencies in the firefighter occupational cancer program. And we continue that this year in this budget, and there are some upgrades in some of our PPE, some of our decon practices. We're going to do everything we can. We've lost 2 souls, and we're going to make sure that doesn't happen again. So that's important. Our EMS program, we're going to continue to enhance that by going to the advanced EMT program. Well, we actually introduced this last year, and the training's ongoing. It takes about a year to get that first group through the training. And so in the next budget year, they'll actually start operating at that level. So this means for traumas, cardiac arrest, diabetic emergencies, we'll start being able to do advanced interventions before the ambulance gets there, as opposed to the basic life support. So that means saving more lives. Another thing, we always look at what I call no-cost or low-cost ways to strengthen our insurance rating. So 2 things we're doing with this next budget year is we're looking at our training. We're streamlining. Under ISO, there are certain categories. There's officer training, company-level training. We're streamlining that to get more points, but it's not costing us anything. So that's one thing we're doing. And then a little bit that's actually in the budget, we have to upgrade some of our equipment that's on our reserve apparatus. And so that's in the budget for this year. This next thing, something I'm really excited about. We started working with Owensboro schools this year, and we're hoping to implement this fall. And that's the 7th grade program. Our goal is every 7th grader is going to leave middle school with CPR certifications, first aid, and fire safety program under their belt. When we started working with their schools, we're like, what age group is starting to stay home watching other kids, or even they tell us even that age group is taking care of elderly grandparents and things like that. So not only will we get this training in our homes, this is more trained personnel out on the street that if somebody has a heart attack in Walmart, they're going to know exactly what to do. When we check the insurance on this, the Kentucky League of Cities is very excited about this program and wants to use our model throughout the state. The other thing is our accreditation's up. Our strategic plan comes up due in 2020. So we had to budget a little extra money for our accreditation program. That's about an 18-month process because you have to do an entirely new community risk assessment, which was done a few years ago, so we'll have to upgrade that. And last is our training center. Our training center was built in the early 70s and has been maintained but not really upgraded since then. It's gotten to the point where it's just not really meeting modern fire service training needs, and it's time to do something about that. But instead of jumping into a program, like what we would like to do is get a third party to come in, study it, give us a plan, and then we can implement that plan over 2, 3, 4 years, whatever it takes to get that done. But we need a plan in place, and we need help doing that. So that's most of our budget for this year, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those. That's fine, no problem.
Up next is Parks and Recreation Director Amanda Rogers.
My memory fell fails me sometimes. Thank you, Chief Mitchell. Thanks, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm excited to be here to present my budget for the upcoming year. I'm going to be presenting and briefing through pages 47 of your budget book through about 87 in your budget book. I promise you it won't be that long, though, Mayor. A lot of pages, but I'll condense it very quickly for you. If the slide you see now is my current organizational chart, we have 14 full-time and 180 non-full-time staff members. We have an extremely efficient department in that we have more than doubled our park acreage that we're responsible for since 2010, and we have decreased our full-time staffing by 2 in that same period of time. So I'm super proud of my team. I have a great team. They work very hard. This team is responsible for over 960 acres at 27 locations. Those locations host a multitude of recreational opportunities for your citizens that include 36 sports fields and 56 sport courts, over 32 miles of trails, 15 shelters, 14 playgrounds. We manage 18 annual long-term facility use agreements. We operate 7 recreational businesses, and we rent to more than 600 individuals or groups each year, in addition to helping nearly 10,000 youth in our community participate in sports programs, tournaments, and events. Plus, we help support the local economy through sports and recreational tourism. We're extremely proud of what we do each year. An example of how we support the economy is this weekend. We've got GMAC college tennis tournament that we're partnering with Wesleyan. They're using the Owensboro Tennis Center. We have 8 college boys teams and 8 college girls teams in town this weekend. We have 102 soccer teams at Thompson-Berry this weekend. In addition, we've got All-A baseball and All-A softball utilizing locations as well. So we're extremely proud of what we do for the community through sports and recreational tourism. We manage these locations and functions in 2 primary funds. With the slide you see there, everything in yellow is through our Parks General Fund, and everything in blue are in our enterprise funds or our recreational funds. We have 14 separate budgets and divisions that function within those funds. So if we talk general fund parks, this houses most of the money needed to operate our green space parks, amenities, and general programming. Those were everything that were yellow on the previous slides. That's locations like Chautauqua Park, Legion, Moreland, the Atkinson Greenbelt, and the outdoor tennis courts at the Owensboro Tennis Complex. The total expenditures for that portion of our budget is just over $3.6 million, which is a 2% increase from previous years. You'll see that we have an increase of about 6% in personnel, mostly for retirement, COLA, and step increases. In addition, we have a decrease of 5% in the maintenance area, just fewer projects this year for those locations, in addition to 50 hours for the DAV Parkkeeper home, which has now been sold, so we have a reduction of 50 hours on the maintenance side of the house. Our capital areas have increased 31%, which is a little bit deceiving, but the primary reason for that is we moved all the capital replacement costs for Smothers Park, previously budgeted in your community division, into Smothers Park. It's a more clear cost analysis of what it takes to operate that location. You don't have to track down one number in one budget and the rest of the numbers in another. It's all in one location, and that's what we do with the other departments and divisions, so it seems to make sense to be more consistent in that manner. If we talk about the recreation fund, that's going to represent all the blue areas from the previous slide. Those blue areas are basically our recreational businesses like our golf courses, the Edge Ice Center, both pools, the softball complex at Fisher Park, and the center court tennis facility. Those total expenditures are just shy of $3 million, which is down 1% or about $20,500. Our personnel expenses are up 6%. That's primarily due to increased retirement cost. We have 2 key skilled labor positions that have let us know they intend to retire this year, so we have a significant amount in retirement contingency. And we had 1 employee add onto our health insurance plan who was previously on his wife's plan. Maintenance is down about 4% or $11,500 just due to fewer projects and fewer budgeted hours on general maintenance and upkeep. We also have our expenses down about 12%, and that's primarily due to the softball complex having a shorter season this year because we're hoping and anticipating to begin phase 1 of renovations for the Owensboro softball complex. Some things to look forward to in the upcoming budget year for parks. is replacement of the Thompson-Berry Playground that's been there 13 years. We'll be replacing that. We also are continuing our senior tee box work at Ben Halls on number 9, 13, and 14. We are doing some bunker work and drainage work and significant repairs on many of the cart and walking bridges at Ben Halls. We're initiating a new youth sports program, a volleyball league that we're going to call Little Spikers for young ladies and young boys in our community. And even though it's in the Your Community Vision Fund, I couldn't go without mentioning the anticipation of Phase 1 complex renovations for Parks and Rec this upcoming year. Any questions?
Pam?
Thank you. Amanda, I was looking at Good Morning America the other day, and they were talking about how everybody's going to spray parks and all this stuff. But they also said that there is this brain-eating amoeba that is being, you know, in spray parks. Some child had contracted this thing. And I was just wondering if you knew about that, and if so, what are we doing, or what do you do about, you know, protecting the kids when the
I've not heard anything recently like what you've read. We do disinfect our spray parks. We have 2 concrete spray parks, one at Kendall Perkins and one at Legion, that get disinfected annually. And we also use straight tap water, so to speak, for those locations. So the water is as good as what you get from and it's not recycled. At Smothers, it's just like a pool. We do recycle that water. We have water chemistry that we have to maintain. We check that water hourly to ensure it does not get out of whack, so that it is safe and clean for the kids. We are only required to check that water once a day, but it has to be kept within certain levels dictated by the state and the health department to make sure that we're staying within those levels. Because of the amount of foot traffic that we have at that location, we check water on the hour at Smothers so that we can be safe for the day.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Amanda, I was at Estes the other day, and they were all excited about something you're going to do at Chautauqua Park. Did I miss that when I was thumbing through these 45 pages of?
That is something that you blessed last year, Mayor. We have 14 playgrounds within our department, and we have those on a replacement plan cycle. So each year, the playground that's quote-unquote due to come up, we analyze if there's a need for that. In the current year, we are replacing Chautauqua.
Oh, they're so excited.
It's highly used by the school, and it's highly used by our day camp and a lot of the neighborhood children. It's one of our larger playgrounds, so I'm extremely excited.
I gave Pam Smith-Wright all the credit for that too, by the way.
Thank you, Pam.
The last year at one of our meetings, we were in the process as a city having 4 African Americans that were first football players at UK memorialized with an outdoor statue, and brought up the thought about, one of them is Owensboro, Houston Hogg, and about doing something to recognize him. And Bob Glenn brought up an idea that we could consider naming one of the football fields at Raymond Morris Park, or is it just Morris Park? So I was going to throw that out. I don't think anybody on the commission would have a big issue with that, but it'd be kind of neat if they're going to recognize him in Lexington. I think it'd be kind of cool if we thought about that a little bit and see if there's some way. I mean, they got 4 fields?
4 fields,
4
yes, sir.
fields. So the one they play the championship game most of the time. I thought it'd be kind of a neat thing to consider. I don't believe it'd be a big cost, and just thinking out loud about that.
I think that's a good idea that I'm happy to discuss with my boss and the Parks Advisory Committee. We are unveiling a plaque for Wayman Morris, a memorial plaque. We haven't had one at that location, so it is on order currently. So we hope to unveil it sometime this season as well, which their season officially starts in July.
And if I'm correct, I believe he played football at Davis County High School for Coach Morris. So I think all that would kind of be kind of a cool deal, really. Next, I would like to ask you about, I don't know where it is, and Angela and Danae, they helped me an awful lot, but I can't find our subsidy for Hillcrest and Ben Halls. Could you show me what page that is on?
I'm going to go to Ben Halls first. Ben Halls begins on page 67 in your budget book.
I didn't get there yet. I was on 62.
67 and 68 are the expenditures. and 69 is the revenues. So if you look at the budget for this upcoming year, we have an expenditure budget of 1.149901. Oh, great, they have a summary sheet, wonderful. So for Ben Halls, the estimated subsidy this year is $601,311. And then at Hillcrest, the estimated subsidy is $113,077. So between the two golf courses, and that's
$612,687.
You have $601,311 for Ben Halls is the subsidy.
Okay.
The subsidy for Hillcrest is $113,077. So between the two golf courses, that's $714,388.
And is this acceptable?
I truly think that's a philosophical question for you and the commission to answer. When you look at public ran golf courses, none make money. That's a lot of the recreational facilities in our community are that way. I think that it's truly up to you, Mayor, on what you and the commission deem as a need and appropriate, and what's the appropriate service level for our community.
Well, that was about as political as you could get.
Well, I don't make those
And
decisions.
quite honestly, it's not our fault per se, because that was a land
Right.
swap where the Bluegrass Museum is, and it's a cost that the taxpayers have assumed
Correct.
to have the land to build the museum. So I understand that. I just know that when it was taken over, the state said their subsidy was like $388 or $412, and now it's $600. So
Well, the state did not do a replacement plan, so no savings account. So when we took the golf course over,
You had
we
to do a
had
bunch of stuff.
horrible equipment, and the golf course was in horrible condition. We did increase our fees last year, and we saw some loss in play and some gain in revenue. And we've done that every year. When the state operated the golf course, I'm going to put Chris on the spot. Chris, what was their total revenue when we took over the year before we took over operations of the golf course?
Hey, Chris Carey, Recreation Manager, Facilities Manager. $388,000 was their revenue, their last year's revenue. And Amanda, capital replacement is a big part of it's nearly $600,000 of expenses this coming year. I know it was $568 for this fiscal year, which was like 40% of the budget, I believe, is just in capital replacement, capital buildings, be it irrigation that we're saving $100,000 a year, and then also the maintenance building as well. So that's 40% right there.
Okay.
So
I'm
we've
not
significantly-
fussing at you.
Yeah,
Just to answer
no,
that.
oh, it's high.
Subsidizing
With that.
people to play golf is what basically
That's
we're doing.
100% true, yes, Mayor, and it's 36 holes of golf, because you got to take into account, we have a par 3 course that's 9 holes, 18 holes, regular course at Ben Halls, we have another 9 at Hillcrest.
And how's the golf soccer ball
Foot
thing
golf.
doing?
You may answer. Foot golf has done very well at Ben Halls.
Foot golf, that's right.
Foot
That's what
golf,
it is.
yeah. We did over 600 rounds just in a short time last year, which is a condensed version. We thought it would do well on the par 3. We set Hillcrest up. Hillcrest did, I think, close to 200 rounds. But Hillcrest is a much more difficult course, and what you're going to see this year is we're going to host a U.S. Open qualifier at Hillcrest. So that is where your more skilled players are going to come in. It's an 18-hole course at Hillcrest compared to just a 9-hole course on the par 3 course. So the par 3 course gets a lot of rec players that are just beginning and learning it. So it's kind of what we want to transition them from Ben Halls to being better and help them with the subsidy
So
at
you play
Hillcrest.
2 9s then at
Yes.
Hillcrest?
Yeah, you have 2 holes at Hillcrest, 2 foot golf holes on each hole, on each golf hole. So it sets up great at Hillcrest, actually.
No broken legs for normal golfers stepping in one of those big chug holes? or
No,
anything?
not yet. No incident reports yet, but they're enjoying it. And you see a lot, I know on the par 3, you see a lot of families that go out, some playing golf, and then the kids kicking the soccer ball, which is exactly what we were sold on and what we look for. So
So
we're
is there a
excited about it.
charge to play foot golf?
Same as we do regular golf. It's a regular green fee. So at Ben Halls, it's $10, whether you play foot golf or regular golf.
Okay.
one thing I'll highlight, Mayor, on the foot golf is we host at Bid Halls about 33 outings a year with not-for-profits, businesses, and organizations in our community. And we're working on trying to get them to receive foot golf and that same scramble mantra as a lot do, because many people, as you know, as being a golfer, are intimidated by golf and don't necessarily play. So foot golf would be a great transition for a lot of people that may be intimidated by the typical sport of golf. So we're looking to drive and encourage some outing revenue through that.
Okie dokie. That's all I have. Anybody? Thank you. Accurate as always.
Thank you, Mayor. And now I believe Wayne Shelton is up.
Oh, boy. This is Public Works, isn't it? Hi, Wayne. You don't want to sit by?
Mayor,
Take a
Commissioners, good
5-minute break.
afternoon.
Okay.
Wayne Shelton, Public Works Director.
We're going to take a 5-minute break.
Okay.
Vice President Cecil said we need a 5-minute break, so that's what we're going to take. Because I heard this one might be a little long.
It's the longest one on this one.
Ladies left.
Hit there, right there. Where'd I point it to? Hit the down arrow.
Now that I've had a break, I can talk for hours anyway.
I told y'all to let's go on. Take care of their hood? Oh, they're dirty?
That 4.5 gallons.
Well, it's so good to. Did you cut me off?
Halfway, just over half.
Gotta be kidding. Over half, at least about. How about you, Mr. Shelton?
Wayne Shelton, Public Works Director.
Oh.
Yeah.
You know, when we talk about public works, we're really talking about nine different areas, the departments that fall under public works. You know, that be engineering, be street, stormwater, which we call our ditch crew, or facilities maintenance, which is we refer to as buildings and grounds, sanitation or fleet garage, transit, and the property maintenance division. You know, you can really break those down to two separate branches, our engineering and operations. And for our engineering budget, I'm going to call our city engineer, Kevin Cullion, to present the engineering budget.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Engineering slide is on slide 49. The engineering budget is up a total of 22%. Personnel costs are up 9%. This is primarily due to health insurance, retirement, and part-time summer interns to perform field inventory for stormwater mapping and sidewalk maintenance ratings. Maintenance is up 25%. This is primarily due to an increased budget for paving and street repairs. This category includes property maintenance demo, professional technical, safety, and training. This is up 69% and is primarily due to an increased budget for property maintenance demolition. You have any questions?
Any questions? No, Larry. We're running back. Yes, what do you got, Commissioner Condon?
Just curious, you said you had an increase for the property maintenance?
Yes, sir.
How many houses are you planning on? How are you looking at taking down? What we got?
That's
later? Okay, when you made reference to it, I thought that was included here.
like to answer that one.
Property maintenance, I'm sure you're asking why it's under engineering. You know, historically, when community development was restructured, it was placed under an engineering department. Demolition budget's left there as administrative accounting purpose only. Okay, the $150,000 will demo approximately 15 houses. You know, with the asbestos and demolition costs by contractor, an average about $10,000 a house.
Thank you, Wayne.
Anything else? Do you have anything else, Mr. Cole?
No, sir.
Excellent. Yes.
Will the city demolish Gabe's Tower, or will we hire that out?
We will contract with someone to do that.
With a great old big dozer. I'm gonna get to ride a dozer again.
I thought we'd say that.
Nice sport coat too, by the way.
Thank you.
Look good. Anything else? Engineering's finished. Lord, look at all them tabs he's got in there.
On our paving budget, Mayor Commissioners, the part of the increase is cost increased by 15%. So when you look at the actual impact to our paving budget from the what I call local paving streets, $900,000 budget that was primarily about $750 last year, a 15% increase. Actually yields about $75,000 increase in the budget. So that'll give you approximately three more what I call neighborhood streets. If you look at the targeted street paving budget, it'll give you about $255,000 over the cost increase, and that will allow us one more targeted street, or what I call a main arterial or collector thoroughfare.
How do you decide whose street to get paved?
Please,
Just
sir.
how long they've been waiting? How do you decide which streets to pave?
We use a combination of two factors. One is our pavement management index, where we go out and actually rate the defects in the street.
Oh, okay.
And the other is that based on the, we factor in some traffic utilization principles.
Thank you.
If you look at street department budgets, you'll see an actual decrease of about 5%, $102,000. Factors that play in that is the supplies. You see that we had a relatively mild winter for the past 2 winters, so our salt supply is readily stocked. So you'll see some decrease in our supplies, technical supplies, by cut down on the need for a large salt supply this year. The other that you'll see is in our basically our contracted expenses. We have one long line striping program. It's based on like a 3-year rotation. When you couple in the paving that we do, and then the rotation, that cost to decrease somewhat this year. Capital you see is up 20%. We replaced 2 tandem dump trucks this past year with snow plows. The cost of those have escalated considerably over the old years, and we went 1 year or so on extension. So you'll see a significant drop 1 year, then you'll see it spike back up, and that's what creates that. You know, some of the things that I need to point out on this budget, even though it's a reduction in overall cost in there, there's not going to be any reduction in level of service or any decrease in maintenance. And you can see that's a depiction of our salt storage facility. It's about 2,500 tons, and it has been filled to the brim, so we're in good supply for salt for next year.
What was in the budget for snow removal last year, for this year?
Last year it was about 1,500 tons, about $70 a ton, which is about $150,000 in the neighborhood. This year we've reduced it like down to 1,000 tons. So we've reduced the salt budget alone by about $100,000. So
That's just the salt, not the
that's
other
just the
stuff.
salt. The other inventory of materials is what reduction in the supplies. Any other questions on that? You know, when we add the street and the engineering together, you can see our infrastructure slide here is what we spent last year, what we plan on spending this year. And with the increase in the paving for engineering, you see the concrete street budget remains the same, and the maintenance of street budget remains the same. Next, I'd like to move to our stormwater, which we call our ditch water crew, or ditch crew. You can see it's basically 0% change in it, no growth. It's basically a 3 full-time person crew. Personnel costs are up. The other costs are down. The other costs you'll find is such things as mosquito spraying, and the contracted cost for repairs. In last year's budget, we had about $87,000 in there for some engineering contracted work. This year, that's not in that budget, so that's why the budget's down. You know, when you look at our ditch crew, you see that we have about 59 miles of ditches in the city to cut and maintain, and there's about 3.3 miles of those have concrete bottoms, which we have to clean out, which is called mucking. It's a very arduous task. questions in the. Next, we'll move on to their property maintenance budget. You see overall, it's down about 2%, so it's $4,000. Our personnel changes, you'll see that since we hired a second full-time inspector, that we've basically eliminated the need for the part-time inspector. So that's where we see the reduction in personnel. Maintenance costs, with added a second full-time inspector, then you have a second vehicle to maintain. Supplies, or maintenance cost is also reflected on that second vehicle. And the supplies is basically down based on our inventory. We stocked last year, and so doing an inventory that we're able to reduce that. In capital, you see the reduction about $16,000. We bought a new truck last year for a second full-time inspector, so that's deducted for this year. You know, when you look at property maintenance, you know, and you're looking at two full-time inspectors, you can see here that we've had an increase in the number of what I call complaint inspections. You know, there's a difference between what the complaint inspections and overall inspections. Go on the bottom, you'll notice that an actual inspection that goes through the citation process may require 6 or more visits or inspections for that property. You know, it's been noted that roughly about 37% of the initial complaint inspections result in a notice of violation, and about 10% of those result in the citation. This basically highlights the increase in the demolition. You know, we have presently targeted about 15 properties that qualify for demolition. It's a very time-consuming task and involves not only property maintenance, but oftentimes engineering and legal department. Yes, sir.
What's your qualifications for tearing one down? What is it?
You know, tearing down an individual's property is what I call a last resort measure.
Okay.
It's dilapidated beyond repair that any, I'm going to say, a normal individual either would or could afford to maintain or repair. Usually you'll find houses that are what I call in dilapidated conditions. You know, if you look at these structures right here, you can see that basically they're abandoned. The property owners have gone off and left them. You know, there may be numerous citations against them, mowing, debris removal, tree removal. So it's not a process that's taken lightly. It's a last resort measure.
Would you have any idea how many we have inside the Beltway?
Off the top of my head, I'm going to say properties that are heading in that direction would probably number in the 70 to 80s.
Well, is there any ideas out there of streamlining ways before it gets to that condition that investors can come into these areas? And I know it's a process to go through to get to the property itself, but is there any other cities doing anything to take the property instead of us spending the 10 is getting it back on the tax somehow before it gets to the dilapidated spot?
Well, you know, there's really, I'm going to say, a couple of conditions that we have to deal with. One is when properties are foreclosed upon.
Right.
Then the financial institutions are very reluctant to come in and spend any money on those properties. And then you have bankruptcy proceedings that also enter into it that really preclude a lot of action against individuals or that property based on that bankruptcy proceeding. You know, the opportunity does exist for a homeowner to reach out to either our property maintenance inspectors or our property maintenance board and to work out a resolution to where if an investor wanted to buy a property, then you know, we would work with those folks to
Okay. Thank you.
At this time, the operations side of the Public Works is really under the guidance of our Deputy Director, Stephen Franklin. So I'd like to turn over a couple of these to him. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. Stephen Franklin, Deputy Director of Public Works. Today I will be briefing you on facility maintenance, which can be found on slide 60. Facility maintenance is an internal service fund which consists of two divisions. You have buildings and you have grounds. They maintain all public facilities and parks. They also assist in festivals, special events, and severe weather cleanup. These departments are staffed with 23 full-time employees and 8 seasonal temps. All full-time employees are required to hold a commercial driver's license and assist in winter weather operations. There are no increases to staff in this budget. As you can see highlighted in yellow, this year's total budget is $3.7 million, which is down 9% from last year due to 4 key factors. First being personnel, which is up 5%. This is due to salaries, retirement, and health insurance. Second is maintenance, which is down 4%, and this is due to rollover of funds from prior year and rollover of maintenance-related inventory. Other category is down 22% due to rollover of funds from prior year and ability to perform tasks in-house opposed to contracting out. And last, we have capital, which is down 62%, and this is primarily due to capital land improvements and timing of projects. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. If not, then I'm going to proceed to garage. Okay, the city garage 2 is internal service fund operation. This department is staffed by 8 full-time employees, 6 of which are mechanics. There are no increases to staffing in this budget. City Garage provides overall management and performs routine services, maintenance, and repairs to all city fleet vehicles, construction equipment, and small equipment. This year's total budget is approximately $1.4 million, which is up 3% from last year due to 3 key factors. First being personnel, which is up 6% due to salaries, retirement, and health insurance. Second is supplies, which is down 1% due to rollover of inventory parts and extending the useful life of tools which are currently in good working condition. And third is capital, which is up approximately $12,000 due to capital replacement plan of items such as asphalt, equipment, roof, heating and air, and vehicles. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
So any work at Ben Hall's, repairing those sheds and all that stuff, is that what we do, or is that farmed out?
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both, okay.
Yes, sir. If we can and our schedule allows, we've got some very talented employees, and we will allow them to do it, and in hopes, 1, they do quality work, and 2, sometimes you see savings. We'll go that route. You're welcome. If that's it, then I'm going to turn it back over to Wayne Shelton.
All this water would have missed it.
I know others are. If you look at sanitation budget, you'll see overall it's up. This is on the budget summary. You can find it on page 117. Overall increase about 6%. And if you look at personnel, it pretty much outlines the 6% increase as previously discussed with insurance and retirements. Maintenance costs are up about 4%, $27,000. Supplies will be down. And capital is up 38%, which is $293,000, a significant portion of the budget. You know, if you look at the service and support side of it, You know, the clean downtown, the sanitation, that mini sweeper we have is part of sanitation budget. That's due to be replaced this coming year. We have 3 leaf machines that are due to be replaced. You know, the 2 new yard waste dump trucks, 2 new side loaders for residential service. We also provide a couple of services that a lot of folks don't pay a lot of attention to outside of those that participate, and that's neighborhood cleanups. This year we're serving 11 out of 12 neighborhood alliances. You know, that's I need to tout that because that's a free service. That's included in the sanitation rates, and that's an opportunity to clean out that garage or storage area and put it on the curb and have it picked up free. Another is festival and special events support. You know, sanitation is pretty much one of the I guess highly involved departments in the special events, whether it be a large event like the barbecue festival or a small runs or whatever. There's always trash generated, and sanitation is always in that gray area behind the scenes.
Wayne, I'm sure you have looked at contracting that sweeper out for downtown, because you know you see them at the mall and different places like that. What's the negative side of that?
Actually, we do contract out street sweeping for the major arterials and streets. The only area that we don't contract out is what I call some of the downtown side streets and corridors. And the reason being there is that it is swept much more frequently than what we would hire a contract sweeper to do. And the rates for some of those sweepers like $100 an hour. So it's the economics of owning a small sweeper allows us to get up into areas that a large sweeper would not get, especially with the bump outs and the sidewalks in different areas.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on sanitation?
I got one more, I'm sorry. At 4:28 in the morning at the health park, we got a great guy. This cat's on time every time, and he dumps this dumpster over there behind the health park, and he scares the bejeebies out of me every daggone morning. I keep thinking I'm going to get used to it. Is that a necessity to do that early in the morning? It makes a lot of noise for that neighborhood. I'm just curious.
You know, our dumpster service is like any other service. The amount of equipment and men is based on the need for that service. You know, with the increased development that we have, Gateway Commons area, for example, you know, may have added 15 or 20 dumpsters. So, you know, at some point, you know, we will be looking at adding another truck, another crew. At that point, we may be able to alter some of the timing. But
So it's a necessity to start that early then?
Yeah.
Okie doke. I'm about to get used to it after 15 years.
The next department we'll take a look at is our transit operations. Now, that department itself has gone through a metamorphosis over the past year. You know, ridership's up. A lot of activities, involvement, some growth in that area is just around the corner. You know, overall the budget is down 5%, $137,000. Personnel costs are up 5%, reflecting other departments' increases. Overall maintenance is down by 26%. Supplies are down by 18%. And capital is down by 30%. You know, if you look at those numbers, part of that is due to the fact of some grants that were worked through and received. So you'll see some of that decrease, like in maintenance costs, is primarily based on a grant for like $110,000 that was received. So that does impact the overall budget. In addition to that, there's also what they call toll credits that our transit manager, Pam McNary, worked through to obtain from the state. And that's basically covering the city side of any matches required. So, you know, hats off to her for working through that and collecting those additional funds. You know, if you look at the grants for transportation for the past year, they approximate something like $987,000. Things that you'll see for transit, you know, or what I call the free ridership offerings. You know, it's just with the commission's blessings, the annual gift of 12 days of Christmas, participation in days like Dump the Pump or increase awareness ridership. You know, we've done some in the process doing some enhancement programs with Kentucky Wesleyan College. We've contacted Brescia and OCTC about a ridership program for students to encourage student utilization of the transit system. You know, I believe 2 of those programs will be going through, and we're still waiting on hear from the other university.
When I was in D.C. a week or so ago, and transit up there has high marks for some lady named Pamela Canary. I don't know who she is, but she's doing a fine job for you.
Well, Pamela's in the back. I'll ask her to stand up, and you can see who Pamela is.
Hello, Pamela.
In this budget, you'll also see 5 new bus shelters. We're in the process of locating about 12 new bus shelters right now, working through those locations and the easements required. Pamela is going to revisit with the VA about the possibility of trying to get something at that location. There's always persistence sometimes wins, so we'll revisit that location. In addition to that, using some of our grant money, we're looking at a bench program. Some areas where the ridership doesn't dictate necessity to have a bus shelter is perhaps there is location or space there that we could put a bench. So, so that's one of the options we're also evaluating. 2 new buses are anticipated to be delivered in probably November or December of this year. In this budget, you'll see 2 new bus wraps included for those new buses. Trolley service downtown is a continued service, and with our outreach to KWC, we are looking to expand perhaps the ability to bring students downtown on Fridays and Saturdays. In addition to that, we also support a lot of different community events. Different one-time events that wouldn't fall under a lease or rent type situation, but it's a participation in especially events or special needs. Any other questions for transit?
Your trolley. First, what's the lifespan of the trolley? And how much do they cost? I can't remember off the top of my head.
A trolley?
The trolley, like the one you're talking about. And I think it's a wonderful idea to go into Kentucky Wesleyan.
Yeah, I think the FTA lifespan, and Pamela can shout out if I'm wrong, the FTA lifespan, I think on buses is like 12 years.
Well,
she's giving you one of these.
Yeah. And, the trolley expense, I believe the last trolley we bought was in the neighborhood of like $400,000.
Okay.
You did a great job Monday, too, by the way. That was a big help.
So, and you're working with Kentucky Wesleyan, maybe. I thought that would be a great idea to bring more people down.
I think Kentucky Wesleyan is on board for that program. OCTC submitted a program that I think was agreeable to, and we are still working with Brescia College on waiting to hear back from them.
So you would just park at the campus, and then people would get on and you'd shoot them straight downtown?
Well, really what it boils down to is for a set fee per student for the first semester.
Right.
Then showing a current ID for the they can get on the bus and off and on ride as many times as they want to.
Great. Wonderful idea. Thank you.
Thank you. So back over to the city manager.
Thank you, Wayne. Up next is general government. General government is basically any item that is not attributable to a specific department. So, for example, the subsidy amount for ambulance provider, random things like that don't have a home in any specific department float here. You can see it shows a 10% increase next year. That's primarily because of 2 items. First is the budget contingency. It's a little bit confusing in some respects, but historically we've budgeted a negative $500,000 in general government for a budget contingency. And essentially, we did that knowing that there would be money across departments that would be unspent. So we would go and take money from the police department or the fire department or public works to zero that balance out. So at the end of the year, we would do the end of the year cleanup budget amendment, and we would actually zero that account out. So instead of doing that in a budget amendment, we just budgeted that way for next year. So it shows as a $500,000 increase. It actually takes it from a negative to zero. Because zero is more than a negative number, it is technically showing as an increase. So I look at it as more of an accounting measure. It doesn't really impact the actual spending that we'll have at the end of the year, if that makes sense, Mayor.
Not a lick.
Okay, so it's an accounting measure, a non-cash item, if you will. The second item attributable for that is a $500,000 CERS or pension reserve account. I referenced this earlier. We know that additional pension costs are coming over the next few years, so we're proposing to put $500,000 back in an account now. We just view this as good management for costs that we know are coming. I will tell you in advance, as we get through the end of the current fiscal year and when we have our end of the year budget amendment for this year, whatever estimated surplus the finance department estimates that we'll have, I'll also be proposing that we put half of that for the current year into the pension reserve account. So let's just say theoretically at the end of the year we're going to have $1 million surplus. I'll be proposing $500,000 goes to the pension reserve account, and the other $500,000 will go to the fund balance to help with our GFOA standards. So that is something we'll probably do for the next 3 to 4 years. I'm hopeful we can put together a balance of somewhere in the $2.5 to $3 million range over the next 3 to 4 years that we'll have to help buffer us for those ensuing years. Again, our pension costs will go up at 12%, our revenues go up at 3%. Those numbers don't work long term, so we'll have some money set aside to help our revenues get caught up there at some point in the future. Again, just a good management practice, we think. The other was a minor increase in the operating transfer, so those items make up the difference in the increase that you see for general government. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Do not have any, I'll turn it over to Angela, and she'll brief the TIF funds.
Yes, Mayor and Commission. The city activated both our Gateway Commons and our downtown riverfront TIFs effective January 1, 2018. And what the activation means is that that's when we start collecting data for our reimbursement period from the state, as well as tracking our local incremental funds. As presented at a previous commission meeting, the incremental actuals for 2018 came in above the state consultant's estimates for the first year, with the exception of the state sales tax at Gateway Commons, which is due to timing. This budget reflects incoming revenues from the TIFs as well as the expected appropriations. The Gateway Common TIF amounts will be split, as far as the payouts, will be split between Regional Water Resource Agency for the debt service they incur for their expansion. A portion of it will go to Gateway Land to agree to the terms of our developer annexation agreement that we have with Matt through Gateway Land for annexing in the 200 or so acres, and also to reimburse the Your Community Vision Fund for the approved public infrastructure. The downtown riverfront TIF revenues will be used 100% of it to pay debt service, to reimburse the general fund, if you will, on approved public infrastructure projects downtown, such as the parking garages and the Bluegrass Museum. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Mayor. Up next, Assistant City Manager Leland Hancock will brief the Your Community Vision Fund.
Mayor and Commission, thank you. Next up, Your Community Vision. I like to think of it as your capital projects fund. The 1920 allocations for this account will be $6,100,000. Of those funds, they're distributed amongst stormwater projects, parks, public safety, public works, transportation issues, weighing in different projects that they deal with, stormwater being a larger portion of those. One of the biggest projects this year is Amanda Rogers' long-awaited Fisher Park improvements for Phase 1. So we've got the fields being remodeled there, the entrance being part of that, the front parking, and a batting cage as well. An additional project in that account that you'll see coming is the remodel of Fire Station number 2. I guess it was last year, Chief, is that correct? the additional firefighters were added. That station was originally designed for 4 staff members per shift. Currently, they're housing 6, with the soon increase to 7. Is that correct? So if you can imagine, those conditions are getting quite cramped. So this expansion will be for the living quarters there for those firefighters. It's Highway 54, yes, sir. So there are various other projects there, smaller projects, Public Works deals with typically, stormwater related. If you have any other questions? Be happy to answer.
Yes, sir. Rolling on. Next will be agency funding. Some of these slides, I look at agency funding in sort of 2 different ways. There's the facility requirements that you see under agency maintenance, and you see under the capital replacement for the Fine Art Museum. Those are numbers provided by Public Works based on the work that they anticipate to facilities that the city owns or has some contractual obligation to maintain or service. And then there's separately, most of those line items are specific for the annual appropriation that we provide those agencies for their operations. So for the operations side, really there were no increases given to the arts agencies, with one exception. That's the Science and History Museum. I think when Kathy was here a couple of weeks ago to present at a work session, she talked about how she made an error in her current year request. So I put her back at where she was 2 years ago, but other than that, I did not propose any increases in the annual operating payments that we provide to them. Again, increases on the facility side from Public Works for work to be done, but not for the funds that we send them, the agencies, to operate. You can also see that per the agreement that we made with the Bluegrass Museum, they did decrease their funding request. If you recall, we had a 3-year phase out based on an amended lease that we approved with the Bluegrass Museum last year.
Does that money just go back into the general fund?
That's correct. Just money that's available for other purposes and not appropriated to the Bluegrass Museum.
Are you going to get off this all the way, or you keep them going? I have a couple of questions about something.
However you want to handle it, Mayor.
No, you through with the arts?
I'm through with the arts.
Okay, then we need a answer. During our last work session, it was mentioned by the Science and History Museum that Kimberly Clark was going to do a major project for them. After that was printed in the Times and in the paper, I got a call from Kimberly Clark, and they felt like she might have misspoken because that project is not on the drawing board to help them. And so they called me, they called the newspaper, I think they called the Owensboro Times, and to try and make sure that everybody understood that, because that was kind of like her salvation, so to speak. They have $26,000 cash on hand. Is that correct? Is that what I remember?
That is correct, Mayor.
We need to have a discussion at some point in time about what should happen or what can happen with the Science and History Museum. It's my opinion it's a valuable piece of property in downtown Owensboro. We made valiant efforts to try and get them to look at their product and maybe change the format a little bit. Now that the River Park is trying to lease that same space that we offer to them out, I'm not sure about the viability of the Science Museum per se, with the problems that are occurring in our building, much less the problems that they're having with finances. So I throw that out to let everybody understand that there's still a discussion, in my view, about how we manage the Museum of Science and History. Obviously, Ms. Olson's put her heart and soul in that for a long time, but we need to take a hard look at it as a great piece of property for downtown development and find out what we can do to help them. And I'll be continuing this discussion with the Science Museum Board. So I'll entertain any comments from anybody, but I think at some point in time we need to really take a hard look at that. Okay.
Okay, moving on to social services. Of course, that is primarily how we fund social services via United Way. Again, a change to the capital replacement program for work that we'll do at the Monday Center. But other than that, we are not proposing any changes to social service organizations.
So from these two slides, we do $950,000 for the arts and $425,000 for social services, which only includes 3, Monday Center, and the Green River Asset Building Coalition. Am I reading that correct?
3 agencies plus those that are funded by United Way.
Okay, United Way, all right.
And then finally, in the government services, again, groups that we are typically required either by ordinance or statute or some other measure to fund. And like the others, we are not proposing any increases or changes to their annual funding allocations.
The extra money that the airport asked for, is it one more year, 2 more? Is it one more year of the extra?
That's correct. That the next year that we're discussing today will be the last year of that commitment.
Is that correct? Okay. There was an advertising commitment to try and help them at $100,000 a year, I believe. I was saying the county. 300 a year?
No, 100,000 for 3 years.
3 years, and the county was doing that as well.
Yes.
That's correct.
Thank you.
If there are no questions or comment about agency funding, next is really sort of a summary of the expenditures of the general fund spending, just so you can see from a high level, broad categories where our expenses lie, where our priorities lie. Obviously, the budget is a policy document of what our priorities are, so you can see public safety is a big portion of that. Again, this is only general fund, so a lot of the sanitation-related funds or public works funds are not included because this is general fund or those discretionary funds that we control. But it does provide an interesting snapshot, I think, of what we fund and what our priorities are. So that concludes the expenditure side. Next, Angela Hamrick will provide an overview of the revenue estimates for the year.
Yes, I know this is a very busy slide, and it's a very condensed one as well. Our general fund has around 120 individual revenue accounts. On this slide, they're condensed down by category and/or department. We have this many accounts because breaking down the revenues into the types of activity by department or activity provides for increased transparency and more efficient tracking and trending analyses for the finance department. The top 5 revenue sources, as reflected in this slide, accounts for $47,301,179, or 82.1% of our total general fund revenues. This budget reflects no rate changes. Any increases in revenue come from growth in the revenue base. This is the first year where a portion of general fund revenues are being reflected in the TIF funds, so you will see smaller increase in occupational license and property tax due to a portion of this revenue now being reflected in our TIF funds. Our occupational license fees, just to review for the viewing public what we're looking at, this is our payroll withholding. The current rate is 1.78%. 1.45% of this goes to the general fund for general operations of our city, and 0.33% funds our Your Community Vision Fund for capital projects. This budget reflects growth of $141,725, or 0.78% over what we forecast. Property tax is the second largest revenue stream. This budget reflects growth of $358,998, or 3.23% over forecast. The OMU cash dividend is increased in accordance with our agreement with OMU. The insurance premium license fee is a fee imposed on insurance companies for policies issued by them. The insurance company then passes this fee on to their policy holders. The city has a total rate of 10%, with 6% reflected in general fund and 4% reflected in the downtown revitalization fund to pay the debt service for our downtown revitalization bonds. The net profit license fees, which is like a local income tax on our businesses, is 1.78% as well, with that 1.45% going to the general fund and 0.33% going to the Your Community Vision Fund. This budget reflects growth of $232,115, or 6.71% over forecast. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
I can do that. Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Hamrick.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mayor, we'll move on to the next and the final section. If you think back to the agenda, the last issue for discussion was forecast, or what we call the long-range plan. So this represents basically the next 4 years of what we expect. So at the top, that's the 18-19 fiscal year. That, of course, is our current year. Right now, we're showing a budgeted deficit of $386,000. We did not expect that to actually be the case. We do expect to have a surplus that is based on budgeted numbers, and all of those will not be expended, and so far revenues are exceeding our budget, so we will have a surplus we expect for the current year. But you can see what we expect for the subsequent the next 4 subsequent years as far as a surplus or deficit. The middle column shows what that does to our ending fund balance, and then the last column shows where the GFOA standard will be for that particular year, so you can get sort of a context of where we are or where we expect to be in relation to the GFOA standard over the next 4 years. And then finally, the last slide depicts the same information graphically, where the red line is the GFOA standard, the blue bars our fund balance as we project it, so that the fact that the blue bar exceeds the red line is a positive because we have revenues we expect to exceed the fund balance, or excuse me, to exceed the GFOA standard. I apologize. Any questions relative to the forecast over the next few years? Well, if not, then this concludes the 1920 fiscal year budget presentation. The process was smooth and uneventful, which is a good thing from a budget perspective. I think it was that way because of true primary reasons, Mayor, so I'd like to thank the department heads and their staffs who submitted very reasonable and justifiable requests, and then further to thank the Finance Department and Angela, Danae, Tim, and Whitney for their guidance and support. Their experience obviously speaks for itself, and I think results in a very, very good document that we're pleased to present to you for your consideration.
I couldn't have said it better. And now?
We're done.
We're done? Oh, we're not done. Commissioner Smith-Wright.
I just wanted to say that, to thank Nate and Angela and all the staff, because I've been here a minute, and this has been just amazing to me that, you know, we haven't had 4 days already of going over and moving in and moving out and doing all that stuff. So I really want to thank each and every one of you for the job that you've done. I know we say it a lot, you know, that you're great, and I truly mean that. I appreciate everything you do.
Very well said. Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank everybody for their hard work. This is my first budget, and it's really great to see a budget that is taking care of our public safety, taking care of our staff here, all the departments, and to have a budget that puts $500,000 back in the general fund without raising anyone's taxes. So thank you.
Anything from this? I'm good. I don't.
One last comment, Mayor.
I figured as much. Go right ahead.
That's an awesome budget, people. I mean, and really, it truly is. Compared to what we've had been going through, this was very, very pleasing to see how the results. And to comment back on Mayor Watson's response, and after sitting here thinking about it a little bit, you know, about the agencies. If we do need to get together and just really come up and brainstorm some ideas to help with that, because I don't think any of us up here want to see someone fail, nor do we want to make them fail. We would like for everyone to succeed, and no matter what. That issue is not going to go away. It's not going to happen. And I do believe that we can come up with some ideas to help. It's all a matter of whether or not the agencies in question are willing to do so. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, staff. Great job.
Well, got anything else? City Manager, good job. Thank all our employees as well. We got department heads, but we also have some people behind these department heads that are working very hard, and we certainly appreciate making us look good. So, can we end? in this? Do we have to vote on it? I'd like to have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion?
None.
Kevin?
Get out of here.